Welcome to the fourth and final episode in a Legendarium series about Viking Ireland. In Part 4, Return of the Norse, we will talk about the last great Viking invasion of Christian Ireland. By the end of the 9th century AD, it became clear to the Norse that Ireland would not part easily with its riches or its land. Beyond their handful of coastal settlements, the Viking presence did not reach far inland into the island. Instead, they sought easier pickings in Iceland and the northwest of England, which further reduced pressure on Ireland during the 9th century. Besides, the Vikings already had the crown jewel of Dublin, founded as a port in 841 AD, and it came under the rule of Olaf and Ivar around the year 853 AD. The two transformed Dublin into the commercial hub of the Irish Sea, with Dublin trading ships getting to Scotland, England, and the Isle of Man. However, Dublin also served as a staging ground for the Great Heathen Army, which invaded England towards the end of the 9th century. Strangely, the goings-on of the Dublin dynasty become hard to trace going towards the end of the 9th century when the great heathen army they supported wrought such havoc. In 902 AD, the combined forces of Brega and Leinster, two native Irish kingdoms, drove the remnants of the Viking dynasty from Dublin, completely driving the Norse from the island. The Annals of Ireland recorded, "The heathens were driven from Ireland, from the fortress of Othcliath, and they abandoned a good number of their ships, and escaped half dead after they had been wounded and broken." With Dublin now in Irish hands, loads of Vikings evacuated Ireland for good. Many headed towards England, then partly under Viking rule. Yet after only a short break, the Waterford coast saw the appearance of Viking sails on the horizon in the year 914. Its passengers reclaimed Waterford and ravaged Munster. Other bases, such as Wexford, Cork, and Limerick, returned to the Viking fold. Most importantly, the Vikings of northern England reclaimed Dublin and installed members of the original dynasty exiled from Ireland for more than a decade. The Vikings then launched offensives deep into Munster and Leinster, where they met relatively little Irish resistance as they pillaged churches and settlements anew. They looted the monasteries of Cork, Lismore, and Agavo, among others. The Vikings even recaptured the important settlements around Dublin, which secured the old Viking dynasty. The king of the Uneasy, Neil Glundub, the most powerful man in Ireland, decided that the Vikings must be stopped. He brought together a combined force of the Uneasy and Leinster. Together, they marched against the Vikings in Munster during the year 918. However, the Vikings routed the Leinstermen and forced the Uneasy forces to retreat. In the year 919, Neil Glundub tried again and besieged Viking Dublin. However, his forces were again routed by the Vikings, and Neil Glundub himself died under Viking swords, along with the best of his men. Indeed, many Irish chiefs fought alongside the Vikings, hoping to free themselves from overbearing Uneasy power. The Vikings continued to raid inland from their towns of Dublin, Cork, and Waterford. In 921, they founded a new town on the southeast tip of Ireland called Wexford, and founded a town called Limerick near a ford on the mouth of the river Shannon near the west coast. Viking attacks forced a change in how the Irish built. The earthen walls and ditches around their houses may have been enough to fend off Irish raiders, but the Vikings came in such numbers that they easily breached the banks to steal animals, take plunder, burn property, and capture slaves. Both ring forts and crannogs thus fell out of use over the course of the 10th century. They were replaced by a more heavily defended underground chamber called a souterrain. A souterrain is built by digging a deep ditch, lining it with stone walls, and putting a roof on it. Used mainly as places of refuge as opposed to storing goods, the tunnels of these souterrains could be over 330 feet long, and over 3,500 known souterrains survive in Ireland. And these refuges did succeed in thwarting Viking aggression. By the year 950, only a generation after the fall of Dublin, the Vikings had stopped raiding Ireland and instead turned their attention towards trade and farming. The Viking tale in Ireland took its final turn around the end of the 10th century AD. It began with the Hiberno-Norse king Amlaed Curain the Red of Dublin getting a little ambitious and developing a taste for conquest. After plunging his army's swords into many Irish necks, including that of the King of Leinster, he suffered inglorious defeat in the kingdom of Meath at the Battle of Tara, which unfolded during the year 980. The annalist called it a red slaughter. And in a final irony, Amlaed Curain Red sought refuge in one of the monasteries his forebears looted. And after the Irish alliance took Dublin, the Irish forced the Viking kings to free all the lands from tribute and to liberate Irish slaves within Viking territories. Now, all Viking cities came under either direct or indirect control of Irish kings. After this, the dragon-headed ships no longer sailed, and the remaining Norse fully integrated into Irish society. They converted to Christianity, spoke Gaelic dialects, and involved themselves in the feuds of their neighbors. Thus ended the Viking Age in Ireland. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.